Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes. Joyce, if you
Can you
want to,
see any of the slides?
on the bottom of the screen, go to PowerPoint.
Bottom of the screen.
Yeah, no, lower down, lower down. That's it.
Here?
Click on there. Yep. And then click to launch your PowerPoint now.
And then do what?
That button there, click that. And there's you.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
So I can only see my slides. So good morning. Can everybody hear me?
We can. You look perfect.
Okay. Because I cannot see any of the chat or anything.
Carry on, Joyce.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Joyce Myers. I'm the Chief Data and Analytics Officer with the United States Army's Aviation and Missile Command. We're located at Redstone Arsenal, Alabama, which is in Huntsville, Alabama. And as you can tell by our title, I am part of the United States Army. I currently work as a Department of the Army civilian. I am a retired Army soldier and a former Army contractor. And I'm currently blessed to be able to serve in the role as the Chief Data and Analytics Officer for AMCOM, as we call it. We like to use acronyms, so the Aviation and Missile Command is called AMCOM. As a soldier, as a civilian, I'm part of an Army profession. The Army profession is a trusted vocation of soldiers and civilians whose collective expertise is the design of, support to, and application of land power, serving under a civilian authority and entrusted to defend the Constitution and rights of interest of the American people. Why did I start with that? Well, as many of you know, the Army has been around longer than our country has been along. And as you can imagine, over the course of those hundreds of years, we've generated enormous amount of data. We're a huge geographically dispersed and diverse organization covering all aspects of the globe, all different levels of people, all different skill sets, with many different processes that are completely complex and disparate across the entire organization. We have a hierarchical organization that has so many levels, from the person inputting data at the keyboard all the way to the President of the United States, and every step in between. And every one of those has questions about the data. But we don't all speak the same language. And as you can imagine, completely scattered out across the Army, we might have one large workplace culture, which would be the Army culture, but each subordinate organization has their own. If you're an airborne ranger, or if you're special forces, or if you're a logistician, or if you're a data scientist, a food service specialist, a tanker, a helicopter pilot, they each have their own culture. But as we speak, what are those things that we want to do from a data and analytics perspective to influence that culture, right? So the culture is all the things about that organization or workplace that aren't covered by our regulations or our policies or our processes. It's really intangible. So how do we come to that common purpose and that common understanding? Well, that's by shared experiences. It's influenced by the leadership behavior. Do we have buy-in from our leaders? Are our leaders engaged? Do they have an understanding? What do the employees think? Do they love working for the organization? Is it just a paycheck? Are they excited about supporting the soldier? How does that play into that workforce culture? And what are our overall expectations? That culture, those people, that forms the foundation of a successful data literate culture. So we have cultures, like I said, many different, but we want ours to be data literate as we grow and develop our data and analytics programs across the Army. And we're using the 5 E's, if you will, and there's actually a 6th E, but we didn't put it on here. So at the leadership, at the high level management, from the highest of our general officers who are giving us guidance and strategy, all the way to our mid and lower level management. We have to envision it. What is it we want to do? Can we encourage that workforce to move forward, right? How do we empower them? How do we engage them? How do we educate them? It's a process, and we've done this so that we can kind of keep it in mind, right? You have to have the vision. It all levels on it. So if we can think in this perspective, then it helps bring the culture together. And like I said, culture change, do we want to change the culture, or do we want to create a new culture? Change is hard. People don't like change unless they understand why it's coming. And that's the approach that we're taking here. So envision is not just having a great idea or the good idea fairy, but it's true understanding by the leadership. And they can understand it all day long, but if we don't get buy-in and support from them, from the highest level all the way down, then it turns into a roadblock, or as I like to call, maybe just a pothole. They're not actually throwing active roadblocks in the way, but the stuff gets stuck in the pothole, never to be seen again. So we have to have active buy-in and support. Have they, as the leaders, communicated the strategy? Do they understand that data is an asset? And there's different silos out there. Do we remove those? We have supply data here, supply chain data. We have transportation data here. We have maintenance data here. We have master data here. And never should they touch. But we know for a fact, in order to be a true asset, we've got to remove those silos and integrate that data effectively. And encouragement. Now, this works across all aspects, right? Not just from a data and analytics perspective, not just from a data literate culture, but in an organization, generally speaking, regardless of what the project is. Do we have a common understanding of where we're going, of what we're doing, of the language, of the lexicon? Does analysis mean the same as analytics? Does visualization mean the same as business intelligence? What is that common understanding of the terms and the definitions? How do we tie it back to our values, right? So if we know that we're supporting the soldier and that is one of our strong values, how do we tie that data importance back to that? How do we encourage people to do that? And everybody has a role, right? I mean, every employee, all of them, we want to encourage from the very lowest level to the highest level that everybody has a role and should have a role, because we all consume data, whether we realize it or not. And again, who are those champions? Maybe it's not our direct leadership. Maybe that's a data analyst who has the ear of the folks in their support, their section. Who are those champions that can help encourage at all the levels of the organization? And then we want to engage with them, right? Engage with the champions, engage with the leadership, develop those relationships at all levels. Because we are such a diverse and dispersed organization, for my organization, for example, we have organizations in Pennsylvania, Alabama, Texas, and then we have soldiers and civilians scattered around the world that belong to our organization. So we really want to build those relationships. We want to be transparent with what we're doing, right? So if you're building a data or an analytics program and you're building a data literacy program, be transparent. If you communicate what you're doing and you share the information, people are more inclined to feel that you're not doing something secret or in a vacuum, and they're more inclined to come along and be part of it. Look for those friction points. So not only do we have champions, we have some of those rogue players or detractors, and I think we all have them, you know, the crossed arms, I'm not going to do it kind of people. Work with them, listen to what they have to say. They didn't just become a friction point, something caused that. And so if we can work with them and listen and figure out what it is, then that can help us not only address their issue, but have them come along to help solve whatever the issue was. Share that information. Get people excited, right? What are their ideas? Can we use your ideas? What's the art of the possible? If you've ever said, what if only, I wish, then that's the art of the possible. How do we use data, and data literacy across the command to get people excited about that. And develop communities of practice, formal or informal, bringing those like-minded people to share ideas, lessons learned, things that they've thought of, ideas that can come out, and maybe it's the same idea across several organizations and they could never gain hold, but together they become a powerhouse of ideas and expertise. And then, of course, you have to educate, right? We truly understand that not everybody understands data or the data terms or the definitions or even the data that they use every single day. So we are conducting assessment, right? What do we have? What is our as-is state? What are the skills we need? What are our skills gaps? It comes back to the people again, right? The more we understand, the more we know what we don't know, the better we're able to develop that common understanding, that data literacy. So we've chosen not to call it a training program. We've chosen not to call it a professional development program. We're calling it a data literacy program. And we're doing that for a reason, right? Because we want to understand, we want to grow more than just in the classroom or technical. We want it to be a broader, overarching program. Down below on the left, those are some of the things that we're working with, right? Those are some of the things where we have found that there are a lot of confusion and there's a lot of misunderstanding there. So that's where we're going to kind of start. But for each organization, as you do your assessment, you're going to find where you would want to focus your data literacy, where your culture, because everybody's organization is different. You're going to have pockets of expertise. You're going to have people who go, what? I don't have a clue what you're saying. So each organization, based on your personal experience with it, based on the assessments you conduct, will allow you to help define and develop a program that works for your organization, whether it be a mom and pop small business or a major corporation or like us, a Department of the Army organization. And then we have to empower them. A recent study done by Accenture shows that employees who identify as data literate are at least 50% more likely than data novice peers to feel empowered and trusted to make better decisions. And ultimately, that's where we want to be, right? We want to empower our workforce with a common understanding so that when they're looking at the data, when they're looking at the information, they have a true understanding or the ability to find somebody with that understanding. So when they make those decisions, they absolutely feel that they were empowered to do so, both by the processes, the information, the education, but also by their leadership and the tools that have been provided to them, and that those decisions are made on good and solid data. Now, the last E that we don't have listed is evaluate. So how do we know that we're doing the right thing, right? How do we know that the program we've put in place is working? How do we do continuous process improvement? Well, that's by evaluating. So we want to go back and look and see, how do we have the strong skills? Did we put the right things in place? Are we transparent enough? Are we sharing the right information? So we do also want to evaluate, and different organizations do that differently, right? So is it an overarching program? Is that something we do one-on-one? Is it each level of the governance structure? Evaluation is going to become very personal to each of the organizations on how they do it, but evaluation serves to feed our lessons learned and serves as an after-action review that we use in the Army to say, hey, we did this right. What were we supposed to do? What did we do? And what could we do better? And that really helps drive, again, it helps that workforce culture, that workplace culture. And if we allow the personnel to help in the evaluation, in the assessments, then again, that creates that buy-in. So if there are any questions at this time, I'd be happy to take them. I'm not seeing anything in the chat. Thank you very much. I really appreciate everybody's time. If you have any questions or anything that you think of later, on the agenda page, my LinkedIn is there, and you're welcome to connect. We are really trying. We stood our program up in September, and we are already identifying. I took the time to personally meet with every single division director and did a one-on-one session with where we were planning on going before we ever rolled out anything. A one-on-one, this is where we're going, this is what we'd like to do. What problems do you have? How can we help work with you? So I think sometimes just that one-on-one. So how do I demonstrate the value of knowledge sharing to the executives? So that's an exceptionally valuable question, right? Because your executives are those leaders that are going to do the buy-in. They're the ones who are going to champion for you, who should champion for you. So how do you do that value? Well, what we've done is I've asked them, what are the questions that you want answered the most, right? The question that you never can get the answer to, and that people always say, I'll get back to you later. So what are those questions? And so when I asked them what are the questions they have, it kind of forced them to take a step back, right? And then I said, just give me 2 or 3. And then we went and worked up a small visualization to show them, hey, if we take the data and we work with the functional owners of the data and the business process owners to specifically not only address your question, but how can we visualize that so that you don't have to dig deep into the details, that we from an executive level, as you can imagine in the Army, how many tanks are in the Army, right? I tell you 152. I've made that number up there significantly more than that. That's the executive level. But our executives have grown from they were the ones who put the fingers on the keyboard. So they know all this data exists below and they want to go into the details. So it's very interesting, right? How do you do that? They understand the knowledge. I've been very fortunate in my organization that they understand data and knowledge sharing, and they've really supported us. So for the DoD has rolled out their data strategy. The Army has rolled out their data plan. That it's a fully great organization. We do present to the public when we're available and when it's approved. So we do feel that our findings in a military context can be leveraged. Data is data, organizations are organizations, cultures are cultures. So I really appreciate you guys and your time. Thank you so very much. I think my time is up, so have a wonderful rest of your day and a great weekend.